We do that, Father. We do that this morning openly, gladly, humbly. We are in any way, shape, or form who we are because of you and your input in our lives. Speak to us this hour, Lord. I especially pray for the ones that would find this especially relevant, that it would be a time of encouragement, a time of hope, and a time of comfort as we look at a different side of family life. I pray that it would be something that would bring honor and glory to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. You may be seated. Well, good morning. Thanks so much for coming back. It was fun to have a day off, but it's much more fun to be together. And this is really, really nice. I appreciate it. Kathy and I are having a great time. We just have so many great memories. We're having fun with Lee and Leslie, our dear friends, because this is their first time, and it's making me realize I've been coming to Cannon Beach almost 40 years, and so that's a lot of years, boys and girls. And so, but I just never grow weary of this place. There's a beauty, and there's something about this place that's just really extra special in it, and we just love it and look forward to this time every chance we get, and it's really fun. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't share my life with Lee Strobel's story right out of the gate. I was going to talk about a little international incident that we had, but I'm going to opt out on that because we have fresh blood. We have brand new material from just a day ago of life with Lee Strobel. I still find this absolutely amazing. I was going to say hard to believe, but I know Lee well enough to know this is classic Lee Strobel, okay? So this would have been Tuesday, because yesterday was the day. Tuesday afternoon, since Kathy and I know Cannon Beach much better than Lee and Leslie do, we kind of gave them our version of a little tour around Cannon Beach, and we're walking around, and you see Haystack Rock, there's just this knee-jerk response: go for your camera. Go for your camera. You know, make a picture behind with Haystack behind you. So we're doing this little photo shoot with us, and we very humbly say, wow, we look good. This is really great. We just need to send this off. So we're sending it off to all the family and everything. So we're at dinner Tuesday night. I'm sitting next to Lee, and his phone is going off like crazy. And I say, what's going on? And he says, well, I don't know. My son Kyle is responding to the pictures, and I don't know what he's saying. I don't know what's going on. I said, well, check it out. What's going on? So I don't know that I've ever met any other person that could make this claim. Lee goes, oh, no, I did it again. I said, what? He said, I have more than one Kyle Strobel in my phone. Only one's my son, but I've been sending it to the wrong Kyle Strobel all day. Who sends pictures to their son and doesn't have their son's correct phone? I mean, that is so Strobel. It boggles the mind. You're sending it to a total stranger? Yeah, I've never met this other guy. I don't know why he's still in my phone, but I send him stuff all the time without realizing it. You know, I think I'm sending it to my son. I'm like, man, you need to seek help, man. I mean, this is just really, really crazy. But he's still a good man. He's having fun. The men, did we have a good breakfast this morning? That was a great time together this morning, wasn't it? And of course, again, was it Tuesday night? The night that he was quoting all those scholars. I'm sitting here on the second row, and Jamie's in the front row. And I remember about 2/3 of the way through, I lean forward and I say, you know, I don't know about you, but I have not heard any name that I recognize that he's quoting. You know, throw me a C.S. Lewis here or a Josh McDowell. I mean, throw me a bone here, big guy. because he's quoting Dr. Archibald Yuk of the Atheistic Institute of, Heart Murmur. And, it's like, I've never heard of any of this stuff. And he's like, well, you should know this. This is just a quote that I lifted from that paper that I'm sure you all read. But it's like, holy moly. So anyway, that's enough. We're having a good time with him. Okay. Tomorrow, believe it or not, tomorrow's our last day. Tomorrow's our last session. But I want to let you know, I want to leave on a high note tomorrow. I want to give a very strong vote for the family and in a very fun and enjoyable way. So I hope that you will be with us tomorrow as we go out on top, go out high. And one of the things that we're going to talk about briefly tomorrow that I just want to kind of tease you with a little bit today is one of the things that family experts, however you have to get into that category, talk about is the value of family traditions. That my favorite study on this refers to them as the always statements in family life. When you think about your family growing up and either you or your kids or your parents saying, we always do this on Easter. This is always the way we spend New Year's Eve or whatever. What we're hearing is that always part of it indicates to the family that's a very strong and important part of this particular family. And of course, for a Christian, some of the best always statements come at Christmas because we can enjoy the whole Santa and, retail hoopla, but we can also get to the true meaning of Christmas, of the birth of Jesus and what that really meant. So I always try to, I automatically visualize this in my head. If I had 5 stools up here, and we brought the 5 Butterworth children up here as now middle-aged adults. My oldest is my daughter, Joy, and then there's 4 sons, again, all J's, Jesse, Jeffrey, John, Joseph. So we have Joy, Jesse, Jeffrey, John, and Joseph, and I just sit down here and I say, tell me about always statements at Christmas. And they could hop right in. It's like a rhythm. It's almost like a rap. Joy would start off. They'd say, we always bought the Christmas tree the day after Thanksgiving. Mom and Dad believed you can't celebrate Christmas in one 24-hour period. You need the maximum amount of time. And in our world, back then, the maximum amount of time started the day after Thanksgiving. Now, it's been nuts with the commercials now, right? They start advertising Christmas. Well, while you've been gone, as soon as 4th of July is over, they kick right in, get this for your Christmas, And so we always bought our Christmas tree the day after Thanksgiving, all right? And next, Jesse would say, we always would buy a Christmas tree that was too big to fit into that Christmas tree stand, all right? And then Jeffrey would say, we always hear Dad say words he's never said any other time of year except when he's trying to put that Christmas tree in the Christmas tree stand. And I confess I'm guilty, but my only explanation is it's tradition. All right, and we would go through all that, and I remember, I'm from the East Coast. I'm a Philadelphia guy, and then the family got started down in South Florida, in Miami. We've spent the first few years of our family life in Miami. And when Swindoll hired us and moved the whole family to Southern California, it was like all of a sudden we lost all the extended family from the East Coast. So we had to figure out how we were going to do Christmas just by ourselves. And so we started having other people come over who maybe didn't have any other place to stay on Christmas. And we would throw like a birthday party for Jesus. That was really the big deal. And, my parents reluctantly surrendered part of my Christmas tradition growing up as a child that I always remembered, and that was the Christmas record albums that I listened to growing up as a child. Now, vinyl is making a comeback, right? I mean, I've been talking about this for years. There was that whole period of time where you had to explain to the audience. Now, if you're not my age, you'll need to understand that vinyl is like, and then try to explain what a record is. But now they understand it, right? But I can still remember the Christmas music that we listened to on those record albums, because growing up, as the always statement, no one sang Silent Night like that particular recording artist that I had in my family album. No one can sing Joy to the World like that particular person. And of course, our records had been through the war, man. I mean, they were in bad shape. So as a child, and then as my children learned it, as I played them on a prehistoric turntable, they would listen as we would sing together, Silent Night, Silent Night, Silent Night, Silent Night. All is calm, all is bright, round yonder, child holy. And I mean, really, that's the way it went. We'd go to church and sing it the right way. My kids would be looking down the road like, what version is this? I've never heard of this before. I said, relax. This is the short version for the radio, Say, oh, okay. And it's like, because nobody sang that Christmas song like they did on that Christmas album, right? It was such great memories, such great traditions, that always statement. And then in these early Christmases in Southern California, when the kids were still small, we would act out the Christmas story. Joy would be Mary, and Jesse would be Joseph, and, we'd have enough kids that, we had sheep and donkeys, and then little Joseph would be baby Jesus, because he was the youngest kid. And we did that every year. It was just great. And then Joseph's like 6 years old. He pulls me aside on Christmas Eve day, and he says, Dad, are you going to make me get into that laundry hamper again? I mean, I'm like hanging out on every side. I mean, this is really crazy, And I thought, yeah, I know, that's bad. And bless his heart, I found out he really wasn't reluctant to do it, with the exception of he was afraid one of his schoolmates would look in the window and see him, and that would embarrass him. So once we promised him that we would close all the curtains and close the blinds, he was willing to be baby Jesus for, one more year. A gangly little baby Jesus, I might add, hanging out of the laundry basket. But it was great. But, the part of the issue with traditions, and 6-year-old baby Jesus is a good example. Some of them you kind of grow out of, right? And you have to give them up, and that can be hard sometimes. And then you have to give up traditions because something really, really bad has happened to your family. They broke up. It's the classic broken home. And Mom and Dad aren't married anymore. Mom lives one place, Dad lives another place. You get to see them both in their own little deal, and come Christmas, it's kind of confusing. I mean, if we do have the tradition, who keeps it up? And if we don't, what happens to the kids? And you know why I'm stuttering here. This happened in our family almost 30 years ago now. But the kids were at home and young enough to be impacted by the fact that their mom and dad didn't live together anymore. This is my personal story coming through that. I'm not speaking on behalf of my kids. I'm not speaking on behalf of my former wife. I want to be careful that you don't think I'm going to say anything that's going to be negatively reflective of my former wife. I really won't do that. If it happens, it's totally accidental. She's the mom of my kids, and it's very important that we be respectful. But it crushed me. The only thing worse than these 5 kids running around trying to figure out what's going on is this middle-aged man trying to figure out what in the world is going on. What just happened? How in the world did we get to this place where we are? And because of my particular situation, here I am making a living, speaking and writing primarily on family issues. I mean, that's what's been so amazing about revisiting these presentations. I mean, this was my bread and butter for years and years. I'd go into a church and I'd give that talk I gave Monday morning on Sunday morning as the sermon. And then I'd say, if you like what you heard today, I'm going to be back tonight, tomorrow night, and Tuesday night. There's not a church in the world that would do this anymore. That's way too many nights to be in church. But I was doing Sunday morning, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, all about healthy families, while mine is falling apart. So obviously I had to get off the road. And if you want to know what that looks like at the bottom line, that's easy. Just kind of make the 0 with your little fingers. Now I'm not making any money. And I don't know how to snap out of it. It's not as simple as snapping out of it. But I had to try to figure out, what am I going to do to survive? Now, more and more, when I talk on marriage and family, I try to include a presentation like this because I have to tell you, on the positive side, one of the things being broken like that taught me is how ignorant I was of the brokenness in homes. I just never addressed it because it wasn't my world. And I made all my presentations sound like family life is just a skip down the Candyland lane, and it's like, that works for some people, but not for all. There's brokenness. There's plenty of brokenness in this room. So you're an intelligent group. I saw that right from the start. Some of you are going to need to connect the dots a little bit for me. You might not be dealing with a divorce situation in the family that is broken in your life. You might need to make it might not be your personal pain. There's a lot of us that are old enough that maybe it's our kids' personal pain that we're watching as they deal with it. Or maybe it's a neighbor or a relative that's not particularly a child. Maybe it's not divorce. Maybe it's rebellion, or maybe it's medical, or maybe it's financial, or a very obvious form of pain in our culture today is addiction. And it's like, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to deal with this? And so I felt like if I could just give you 2 or 3 points that helped me in ultimately regaining equilibrium, that maybe it'd be helpful for us all to hear. If for no other reason, if you can't think of anybody who's got brokenness, and just take better notes, because you'll meet somebody at some point. And I want to tell you some things that if it's never your brokenness, this is at least how you can be of a ministry to those that are broken. Okay? So, 3 very simple things. I refer to them as the 3 great needs of a single adult. That was the first thing right out of the gate. Boy, I hope I don't become the divorcee, the divorced guy. And I found that, this is another way to say it that's a little less chastising, the single again person, all right? So the 3 great needs of a single again adult. And I'm going to do a little spoiler alert here. When we get done all 3 of these 3 needs work for everybody, no matter what their marital status is, no matter what their age, no matter what their vocation. We're just going to focus on a single again kind of person for just a few minutes, okay? So, point number 1 is I need acceptance from myself. I need acceptance from myself. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 7. For as he thinks within himself, so he is. I was crushed by my divorce. I was encouraged by certain people in ways that they thought would be helpful that just crushed me even more. divorce 30 years ago was much more of a hot potato in the church than it is today. People didn't know what to do with a divorced person, period, let alone someone who was formerly up front, and I had every conceivable way of being treated in terms vocationally of being a single again person. Everything from, well, now that you're divorced, we'll never have you up front again, ever. We love you, but don't even take a step forward. Never. Okay, all others said, we can't have you in your present situation, but if you remarry, let us know, then we can have you back. And then another would say, well, we can't have you for a while. Maybe we can have you back, but don't remarry. If you remarry, then we can. It was just every conceivable. I don't know what to do. One of my closest friends said, the answer is, let's get you a good position selling shoes at Nordstrom's. And I'm like, this is what I have to look forward to? I mean, if you're a shoe salesman, I mean no disrespect. But I mean, it wasn't my gift set. And it's like, wow, what am I going to do? And I was so self-absorbed. And I think part of that has to happen as part of the grieving process. If you're not really thinking about where you are, you're not really doing your work, okay? You're the kind of person, no problem, and you're back in another relationship in a matter of days, which brings up the old basketball term, rebound, okay? So be careful about that. It's a little too quick, I think. You might want to try to do a little more processing of what this is all about. And I just remember feeling so sad and so confused. And losing work was another big deal. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I'm to this day very grateful that a close friend of mine called and said, Bill, you need to be writing. And I took that to mean you need me to write my story. I had done half a dozen books at that point. And it was like, and I remember saying, yeah, you may be right. I may write this up one day in hopes that it would help somebody else. He said, well, yeah, good. But I'm not talking about you writing your story. I'm talking about there's a way you can make money helping other people write their story. It's called ghostwriting or collaborating. Talk to your literary agent, see if he can get you some ghostwriting projects, which I did, and he began getting me ghostwriting projects, helping other people write their story, write their books. And fascinatingly enough, I've continued to do that through the years, even to the point that that's the only way I got through the 2 years of COVID. I mean, nobody was bringing speakers in, but I was ghostwriting. It was amazing. And I love ghostwriting. It's like, well, don't you wish you could tell? I don't have any problem with helping other people tell their story. I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. And look at me, I'm a ghostwriter. Notice the white, chalky complexion. I mean, I look like a ghostwriter, don't I? I mean, it's amazing. So one of the first projects I had while I was still kind of dealing with who am I and how am I going to work on this was a guy in the Midwest, and it was one of the most unusual ghostwriting situations I've ever had, because normally if I'm going to ghostwrite your book, it's you and me. I come visit you, I interview you, I take notes and everything, and that's it. This guy wanted to write a book, and he had built kind of a think tank. There was like 8 of us that sat in a circle, and I'm just frantically taking notes because I'm the person that's going to write this stuff up. So I remember it was in February, and, it was in a nice, wintry community, and I'm sitting around with these other guys, and I'm writing all this stuff down, and I remember we were supposed to be there for a Tuesday, Wednesday, and a Thursday in the middle of February. And Tuesday went great, come in Wednesday, and we're actually ahead of schedule. And so we get together on Thursday, and the host, the guy who's putting this whole thing together, comes in Thursday, and he says, man, I have got to apologize. It never even occurred to me This is Valentine's Day. I've got all you guys. It was all men. I got all you guys working on Valentine's Day. That's no good. So we're going to cut this meeting short and everybody go home and be with your wife. Well, when you're in the position that I'm in at that point, I'm thinking, you evil, satanic devil of a Nazi. We don't all have wives to go home to. And you know it. You just said it to get under my skin. I might write your book bad. So there's like 8 of us guys, and 6 of them are all local. So they literally can go home to their wives. It's just me and one other guy, Randy. Whew. Randy and me are the only ones that have no one to go home to at that point. Now, Randy has a wife, but she's in another state. I don't have a wife, and I'm also in another state. So I'm just totally a loser in this whole thing. So our host looks at Randy and me and he says, oh, you know what, guys, I'm sorry. I'm not thinking. Look, the hotel you're staying at has one of the best restaurants in town. I'll call and get you a reservation. You two are going to have the best meal you've ever had. Randy's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, whoopee, you know. And so we go back to the hotel. Randy says, all right, let's just freshen up. We'll come back down. So we clean up. We go back down, and we walk up to the maitre d', and we say, I think there should be a reservation for us today, a table of 2. And the maitre d' says, in kind of Frenchy, oh, monsieur, there are no reservations tonight. It is Valentine's Day. All tables are tables for 2. And we're looking around, and it's couples. Everywhere you can look, man, woman, couples. And Randy and me. And I'm like, oh no. And it turns out they're just seating people as they come, as tables become available. And of course, when our table becomes available, it is the primo table in the restaurant. All right? This restaurant is kind of a ski, snow cottage kind of thing, big log cabin thing, with an enormous fireplace the size of the whole wall. And there's a table right there in front of the fireplace. That's where Randy and I sit. I am sweating like a pig from the fire and from just the situation in general. As soon as we sit down, a little girl comes with a basket of long stem roses. And she looks at Randy and me, and it's like, we're there, no rose, all right? Again, this is like 30 years ago. I mean, this is way before anybody's really seen what we're seeing. And it's like, whoa. And then the waiter comes and he says, oh, we have some beautiful dinners for 2 tonight, Well, by now, Randy's pretty upset. He's an old cowboy kind of guy. And he just says, no, I want a steak. I want the biggest steak you can make, and I want it rare. I want it to bleed. And all the couples are looking over at Randy the cowboy who's screaming, trying to define his masculinity by his choice of, and I thought I should do the same thing, but I thought, no, that wouldn't be good. Me saying, oh, I'll have the same thing. It's like, no, that's not going to fly. So I said, well, okay, instead of, do you have like prime rib? Oh, yes, Missouri, we have prime rib. And I said, all right, I'll have one of those. And he looks at me and he goes, King's cut or Queen's? And Randy answers me, give him the King's cut. Give him the rarest prime rib you've ever had. I want it to moo. I want it to bleed. I want it to moo like the Cannon Beach. He didn't know about Cannon Beach, but anyway. So they bring that thing, and if you've ever had an awkward dinner, it's the kind of, can you bring the check with the entree kind of thing? And we're eating, we're hardly talking, I'm sweating like crazy, and everybody's staring at us, and Randy's just obnoxiously loud as he eats his rare steak. And it's like, we end up, pay the bill, I get on the elevator, I go upstairs, go to my room, and in true big boy fashion, I just collapse on the bed and cry like a baby into my pillow with the ridiculous prayer to God, "Dear God, why am I the only person in the world tonight that doesn't have a Valentine?" Because I was broken, because I was so hurt. And I just hadn't come to grips with who I really was in this new circumstance that I was dealing with. And it took quite a while for me to adjust to that, because I kind of went into it all with, like, there are certain people who were like born to be married. I was born to be married. And yet I didn't want to jump into something else that was going to be unhealthy or too quick before I've really done my own stuff. And then I kind of felt like maybe I missed my window, because it was 6 years before I met Kathy. And in those 6 years, it's like, boy, am I really going to be okay? And it was summertime, and another wonderful conference center that you may have heard of, Mount Hermon, down in Northern California, is another conference I have a great relationship with, and they continued to bring me in, despite all the advice that don't put him up front. You're going to resent. You're going to be sorry you did that. It's going to be a problem. A divorce guy up there, and I remember being so grateful to the grace that they administered to me to be able to keep speaking. And then I remember one afternoon I went to their little chapel. I sat there all by itself, and little stained glass, kind of the same kind of thing. It was very, very quiet. And I remember that was the moment where I first said, God, I accept who I am, even including being single again. I know you can use me, and I know you will use me. So if you want me to be unmarried for the rest of my life, I will. And it was probably 3 months later that God brought Kathy into my life. It's like he just needed me to hear that I was willing to say, I surrender all. Christ is all I need. I can't allow the circumstance to cripple me from being the person that God wants me to be. And I just offer that to you. If you are broken today, you're wrestling with this stuff. You know what I'm talking about. That's why God gave us good, solid therapists to help us talk through this stuff and work through this stuff. What am I learning that I won't have to go through again? All right? It's common. So take your time and do it carefully and thoroughly, and have people around you that can really speak into your life to help you that way. Because that leads to the second point. Not only, number one, I need acceptance from myself. Number two, I need help from others. I need help from others. Galatians chapter 2 says, let us bear one another's burdens. Let us do good to all men, especially to those who are of the household of faith. That the Bible teaches, no matter what your marital status is, we need each other. And if there was ever a good example of that, how about a single male trying to raise 5 kids all by himself? I mean, I remember thinking, are you kidding me? I had a terrible time trying to raise them when I had a partner. I mean, we're outnumbered. There's just too many of them. What were we thinking? Well, that's why we need help. And God bless those men and women who came alongside and said, hey, look, let us do carpool for you. Let us pick your kid up after school. Let us, watch them at night so you can go out to a movie, or you can just, get out of the house. You're not doing anything. You're just kind of sitting there vegetating. You need people in your life that aren't little kids scratching their heads just like you are, saying, whoa, what happened here? What's going on? All right? So, I was really foolish in a lot of how I handled this. Most significantly, when it first happened, I had convinced myself I can live without anybody ever knowing this. I can keep it as the world's best secret. What do I do for a living? I get on an airplane and travel someplace else and speak. I usually don't have my wife with me. She's home with the kids. So nobody needs to know that I don't have a wife anymore. I'm undercover. I'm secret agent man. And that was just absolutely foolish. I needed people in my life. I would just, let the phone calls come in, and I chose not to answer them because I couldn't outright lie, but I thought I'm just not going to address it. I'm just going to let them leave a message on the answering machine. There's two words you haven't heard in a long time. Answering machine. Remember those days? All right. So this call came through one day, and the message was on the answering machine. It was a very, very dear friend of mine who lived in Phoenix. His name is Gary. And he's there. Hey, Bill, it's Gary. Haven't talked in a while. If you get a chance, give me a call back. Just want to see how things are going. And he hung up. And I had known Gary for years. I'm a big sports nut. He was a sportscaster on CBS. And I love this guy for 100 different reasons, not the least of which he always had tickets. And Gary and I had just built this wonderful relationship. And I thought, you know what? He's a really upbeat, nice, encouraging guy. I don't think he's going to beat me up on this. I think I might venture out and maybe make him one of the first guys I let him know the real story. So I called him back, and hey, guy, you called back. What's going on? I said, Gary, you better sit down. This is not an easy thing to say. And so I started telling him, I'm divorced now. It's all happened pretty quick, I think, but it's bad. And Gary's like, so are you traveling? I said, no. I got myself off the road. I canceled all my gigs, and I'm just trying to heal up. And I'd share a little more of my pain, and he was listening. And then he'd say, so you're not going anywhere? You're just staying home? Yep, I'm just staying here trying to raise these guys and do what I'm supposed to do. And I'd share a little more of my pain. And he said, so seriously, you're not traveling? And I remember hanging up thinking, well, that didn't go very well. I'm pouring out my soul, and he's more concerned with my calendar than anything else. I said, what that's all about? And, of course, the next day I discovered it's FedEx with a plane ticket to Phoenix. And he called after 10:30 with the 10:30 delivery. He said, did you get the FedEx? He said, yeah. And he said, I'll never forget it. You can write it down. Nobody should go through what you're going through by yourself. Nobody should go through what you're going through by yourself. Listen, you're coming to Phoenix. My wife, Linda, is actually on her way out to visit her sister in Colorado. So come on out here. We'll be a couple of bachelors. We'll do bachelor things. We'll play golf. We'll eat ribs. We'll raise our cholesterol. We'll do all kinds of bachelor things. You need somebody else in your life. I said, Gary, that sounds great. Let's go for it. Man, I got on that plane and I flew to Phoenix, and it was therapeutic. I mean, I played golf. We ate ribs. We raised our cholesterol. It was really fantastic. And it all ended much too soon. I remember the last night I was going to fly home the following afternoon. I'm just falling asleep in his guest room, and he comes to the door. And he's kind of bouncing up and down. He's there. Was this good? I said, oh, man, this was really good, Gary. He said, yeah, we got a few more hours tomorrow morning. Are you up for something? And I'm there. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but you haven't let me down so far. Whatever it is, let's go for it. He said, great. We're going to get up real early before the sun rises, and we're going to drive to the base of Camelback Mountain, and you and I are going to climb Camelback Mountain because you need to see the sunrise over Camelback Mountain. It'll change your life, brother. And I'm there, all right. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm really not in shape for something like this. My workouts at this point consisted of every Tuesday night taking out the trash and bringing it back in on Wednesday. I mean, I'm not trying to be wussy about this, but... And as soon as I said, all right, I knew I was in over my head because he starts throwing in all this gear we're going to wear tomorrow to climb Camelback Mountain. A little shorts and a little tank top and, hiking boots. And my favorite piece of apparatus, this belt with like 8 water bottles Velcroed to it. And I'm thinking, this is amazing. Tomorrow I'm going to die. So we get up at dark 30 and we drive to the base of Camelback Mountain. And this thing is like a cultic ritual in the city of Phoenix. I mean, people are lined up to make this hike. And so I get in line, and I have to tell you, you're nodding. Are you from Phoenix? I mean, no disrespect about what I'm about to say. But Phoenix is, as has been said, the city of the newlywed and the nearly dead. All right? There's a lot of senior action in Phoenix. And they're all lined up to climb Camelback Mountain. So I get in line, and I'm behind this alligator skin, chain smoking, tattooed, bow-legged, blue-haired lady who's like, man, you know, and I thought, I don't want to look at that. So I jumped in front of her. So she was behind me, and we start off, and I'm good for like 3 minutes. And I'm huffing and I'm puffing and I'm hyperventilating. And I've drank all the water in all 8 of my water bottles. And she's like going for it. She's ripping me. Get the blankety blank out of the blank way, you know. And she's like sailor on shore duty, you know. I mean, she's just cussing me upside one down the other. And I'm like, oh man. And I'm going up as fast as I can, as far as I can. And finally I say, Gary, I got to stop. I can't do it. He says, no, you can do it. I said, no, I can't. He says, you can do it. I said, no, I can't. He says, come on, you can do it. No, I can't. You know. And finally, bless his heart, he says to me, okay, look, what if we slow down and climb the mountain at your pace? I really think you need to get to the top of this mountain. Let's not be in a hurry. Let's just take our time. And I was so befuddled by that, I think my first comment was, well, we're not going to see the sunrise. He said, that's all right. That's all right. We'll pass on that. I just think you need to get up to the top of the mountain. So he and I are walking up together. He's sharing his water with me. I mean, if you want symbols for God at work in the life of somebody, I mean, this story is just rich with them. He's sharing his water with me, and he's got his arm around me when it's tough, and he's helping me. And finally, we get to the top of Camelback Mountain. And sure enough, we did not see the sunrise. It was really more of a, you know, a Camelback at high noon kind of thing. And we looked out over it, and I remember saying, I was so emotional at that time. I mean, just anything would make me cry. And I said, Gary, I don't want to be corny, but while you and I are up here by ourselves, would you just pray? And pray for my kids. I don't want my kids to get all messed up in this. And he did. He prayed. It was not long or eloquent. He just prayed what I asked him to pray. We said amen. We gave each other a man hug, and we went back down the mountain. And I might add, I went down the mountain really well. Good pace, good clip, you know, very conversational. How you doing? Good to see you, you know. And it helped me realize, you know what? Every person in this room is on that mountain somewhere today. Somebody's on their way up, and you honestly don't believe it could hurt worse than it hurts right now. And somebody else is up at the top, and for the first time in a long time, they understand why you endured that pain. You see things from a different perspective that you would have never seen before if you had not been put through this. Whoa, like it might have been what was intended. And then some of us are on our way down, just smiling and smoking and joking and talking to one another. And the only problem is life is more than one mountain, isn't it? No sooner you get down, then there's another one you got to figure out how to get through. No sooner did I start to figure out how to make peace with my position as a single again adult, and now I got all these teenagers in the house. My goodness, someone shoot me now, you know? It's like, wow, it's a lot. There's a real challenge there. So I need acceptance from myself, help from others, And finally, number 3, I need healing from God. I need healing from God. I just want to say one more thing about number 2. Everyone in this room can apply number 2. If you know someone in your sphere that's hurting, they need you right now. I really needed Gary, and one of the things that I appreciated most about Gary is he didn't try to offer up explanations and answers. There weren't a lot of verses going back and forth. There weren't a lot of I just needed a friend. I just needed someone who could listen to me dump my pile of stuff and not be judgmental and not try to answer it with, well, here's 3 bullet points that you might. I just needed a friend. And I needed a friend in my hometown to help me with my kids. And these people were so helpful to reach out and help me with my kids. And it was a very, very significant thing. So don't forget to be that kind of person in the life of somebody else, if that's the sphere that you're in right now. I need healing from God. So, isn't it funny? I started with traditions and significantly Christmas traditions. I would have to say that the first Christmas as a single again adult might be the most crazy, difficult, painful time I had ever. Well, telling the kids that we were getting divorced was the worst moment in all of that. But then this first Christmas was just horrific. Because here's my poor kids trying to figure out what's going on. And Dad, who is a total basket case. And I get in my head that, you know what? We're going to make it real. We're not going to get all celebratory this Christmas. We're not going to do a lot of joy to the world. We're going to celebrate the cold, hard reality of Christmas. You know, I had a professor in seminary that said Jesus wasn't born in a barn. He was born in a cave. This is going to be a rock-like Christmas, kids. I mean, that's what I'm saying to them, honestly. It's like, you know, we're not going to have the tree and the hoopla and the gifts and the stuff like that. We're just going to focus on Jesus in the cave. And my kids are looking at one another and say, Dad's gone. He's like totally flipped. It's like, you know, what are we going to do? And that's kind of where I was. I mean, I did get a tree. We did put a tree up. But, I mean, I was in no way, shape, or form ready to do any joy to the world. So it's the Sunday before Christmas. And I pack everybody into the car, and we drive up to the church. At this time, my best friend locally was also the senior pastor of this church. Great guy named Ed, who walked with me through a lot of this, and I cried a million tears in his office and just broke him on Kleenex. I mean, there was just a lot of stuff going on, and he was a really good guy. And I remember took the kids to all their classes, and I'm sitting in the back row of the little church, a smaller congregation than us here, maybe about 2/3 of the size. I'm in the back row, and again, if you've ever been in this situation, you know how it works. They're just little things that set you off, and you remember, oh, we used to sing this Christmas carol as a family, you know, and I'm weeping all over the hymn book. The hymn book is soaked. And this, you know, look at that little Christmas angel. That reminded me. I mean, there's just, you know, and it could be a smell, it could be a song, it could be a meal, it could be, you know, something on TV. And I'm like a basket case in the back of the church. So get through all the introductory stuff. Ed gets up to give the Christmas message, and Ed says, as he begins his message, as only a pastor can say, I wonder, has this been a particularly difficult Christmas for anyone in our congregation? And I'm like, are you kidding me? And it was like, let's all turn and look at Bill. And I'm like, and again, the follow-up line that only a pastor can pull off. I sense that this has been a difficult year for some. And I'm thinking, since I cried like $500 worth of tissues in your office. What do you mean? I've been there. You know. And he says, so instead of going to the classic Christmas texts in Matthew or Luke, I want to go to a text that is prophetic of when Jesus would come on earth. And it's found in the 61st chapter of Isaiah, Isaiah 61, verse 1. And it says, the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the afflicted, to proclaim liberty to captives and freedom to prisoners. And just like I read it, he intentionally left out that middle phrase. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted. Is there anyone here today with a broken heart? I'm absolutely destroyed at that point. He says, well, you know what? Christmas is why you can have that broken heart healed. And the way the front of the church was set up, you see how there's two sets of stairs here on the church. The whole front was stairs. And so what they did right in front of the pulpit on the stairs is they built an extra little platform, and they had a life-size manger with hay and then a little plastic baby doll wrapped in a blanket to be baby Jesus right in front of the pulpit. And I remember Ed comes down the steps and he stands right by the manger and he says, if you're here today and you're brokenhearted, I don't need you to literally physically get up and come here, but I need for you in your mind, I need you to take all that brokenness, all that sadness, all that pain, and I want you to leave it right here in the manger, because that's why baby Jesus came. He came to bind up your broken heart. Now, I'm not a big believer in miraculous healings and overnight, that was the beginning of my healing. And I mean, I was a new person when I left the church. My spirit was lifted up, and I grabbed the kids and I said, I'm sorry, this whole rock-like Christmas thing really stinks, doesn't it? I said, come on, let's go home, let's get the stuff out, let's decorate. And we decorated everything, and like you probably, we have as one of our inside decorations a little miniature nativity scene or creche or whatever you might call it. And I remember setting that up on the coffee table in the living room, and as I got the little baby Jesus, putting it in the manger, all I could think of was, I've come to bind up your broken heart. And that little baby Jesus in that little miniature nativity scene ministered to me for days and weeks and months. We came to January 1st, which is the day we normally take the Christmas stuff down between, bowl games 12 and 13, and we're taking all the Christmas stuff down, and we get to that nativity scene, and I think to myself, I cannot pack that up. That is so meaningful to me. Where am I going to put it? And I immediately knew. In the master bedroom was the bed that I had shared with someone for 17 years. And over on that side was the nightstand that used to be filled with magazines and books and tissues and stuff like that, and it was now bare naked. And I'm going, that's where it's going. I'm going to put that little nativity scene over there. So every morning when I wake up and I roll over and I see that, rather than feeling sad, I realize, little baby Jesus, he's come to bind up my broken heart. And I'm telling you what, that was a part of our home for a long time as he continued to heal me. So I offer that to you today, knowing that for many of you, you have to connect dots to get to someone where this really is relating, and yet I sense there's probably others who are living it right on right now. I need acceptance from myself. I need help from others. I need healing from God. I have no 2.0 to review because the whole presentation is a 2.0 review, trying to figure out how to do it right this time, how to make it right. And 1999, God brought Kathy into my life, and I've never been the same since. It's been absolutely amazing. But so much I needed to learn prior to that, including if God never brought me a Kathy, I'd be all right, just the way I am. So I want you to bow your heads and close your eyes with me as we wrap this up today. And I just want to ask you, while you're in that posture, is there some kind of pain or brokenness in your world right now? Can I ask you to just take a minute through a silent prayer and ask God to put these 3 simple points to work in your life? And can I remember you as I close in prayer? No one's looking around. This isn't a big showy thing. But if this is a particular point of concern in your life, and brokenness is truly an issue that you want help with, can you just slip your hand up and put it down? Yeah, thanks.